So right now I want to have our two panelists come up and join me right now. Candace from Zappos and Scott with Neiman Marcus, and they're going to be sharing some more insights about how their companies use innovation labs and their overall roles within the organization. So join me in welcoming them.
I guess this is you.
All right. So quick reminder to you guys, I've been watching the wall actually through Ted's presentation, and you've all been doing a great job of tweeting. So I am keeping my eyes open. So if you have any questions for our panelists, I'm going to try and get to them. But of course, they'll be roaming around all day. So feel free to grab them and have a follow-up conversation. Before we get started, I figured it would be a good opportunity for you guys to basically share a little bit about the origins and history of your innovation labs, and obviously, your overall role, because we'll get down to the nitty-gritty of your day-to-day life as our first topic.
Go first.
Sure. I'm Candace. I'm with the Zappos lab. We have been a lab for about 3.5, going on 4 years now. I joined about 2 years ago. We're actually based in San Francisco, but I'm based in Las Vegas, where our headquarters is. We are all over the place. We do a million things. We all have technical external titles that we use, but really we're wearing 7 to 10 different hats every day. We're just rolling with whatever punches come through to us.
So hi, Scott Emmons. So I've been with Neiman Marcus since 2003. Our innovation lab program is 3 years old. It was founded, we got a new CIO 3 years ago, and that was one of his very early initiatives, is he wanted to do a more formalized innovation program. So I got invited to found our innovation lab. It's me and anybody I can drag in, into the lab to help me, external and internal.
Great. So to start out our conversation, Candace, I'm going to turn to you first, because what interests me most about Zappos' model and how you guys really work together, and you'll be touching on this later, about collaborating within the modern retail workforce. Since you guys wear so many hats and you're all kind of working together, what's the standard day-to-day life like for you within the innovation lab?
There is no standard day. That's the first thing that you have to be prepared for. I can expect every day to have a stand-up with my team. We ask each other simple questions. Are you being blocked by anything today? What do you need to accomplish the task that you have done? But we all check our calendars, look at what's going on, and just take the next step in what we need to do for that day. There's not a lot of planning my day out, because I don't know what's going to come from other avenues. We work with a lot of people outside of our department, if you will, so I don't know what they need from me. I don't know what is going to land on the table. Once we have our stand-up, it's one of the first things we do in the morning. Then I can formulate a game plan. Do I need to schedule a meeting with somebody? Do I need to get on a conference call? But it's not until I actually get there that I can formulate a master plan for the day.
Great. And Scott, since you're the main guy, what's it like for you?
It's the same. I mean, there is no standard day, that's for sure. I don't think that most of the colleagues and people I deal with have figured out that they can communicate with Snapchat and so many other things. We were just hearing from the keynote, right? So my day will start at 6 a.m. At the desk, and it's dealing with a lot of email, and playing catch up with whatever I didn't finish the day before. We'll have, typically some development projects going on in the lab that involve offshore teams, so there'll probably be some early morning meetings to help accommodate their schedules to, get those projects moving along and get status on what's going on with them. And then hopefully, once that's finished, there's some time to go into the lab and just, play, create, those sorts of things. I spend a lot of time meeting with vendors, that have something that may be of interest to us and trying to vet that. I spend a lot of time dealing with, kind of executive and management requests who have seen something that, they would like us to pursue in the lab, and every day is different. Yeah, so, yeah.
No, this is great. And like I said earlier in the presentation, it seems like there are a lot of conversations around innovation labs, more retailers opening them. So I think your feedback and learning more about what your day-to-day lives are like can help all the retailers in the audience here that are either thinking about formulating an innovation lab, employee structure. Again, you guys shared a little bit of insight from the headcount standpoint, but how does your business overall prioritize innovation as a practice, and the lab specifically? How do you guys go about making sure that you're constantly moving forward and playing, testing new things? Scott, like you said, how do you kind of keep it a main focus as a business?
So luckily for Zappos, we've always wanted to innovate and do something different, and not necessarily just disrupt the market, but look at the market in a different way. And so a few years ago, we realized that there's this great location in San Francisco where all of these startups are formulating and people are sharing all of these incredible ideas, but we didn't have a location there. So why don't we figure out a way to engage with this really great group of people that are sharing really wonderful ideas with each other? And so the Labs team was born at that point. We luckily have never had a barrier placed on us. There's never been an expectation for us to do something specific in a specific time frame. We've been given a lot of freedom, and so it allows us to play with different ideas that we throw around. Maybe today we've got a really awesome idea. It's not on the agenda. Nobody thought that we would do something crazy, but somebody came in with a really great idea, and we've got the opportunity to run with it.
So the lab was started by the C-suite, so I automatically had a backing when it was founded. It helps to have a few successes, I think, along the way, and I think it does take some education for in our organization where success is expected. It is a different mindset, to get folks to understand that not everything you do is going to work. In fact, most of the things you do are not going to work. They're really, learning exercises that you're going to take and apply down the road to, one of your next projects that you're working on. And we can see that, kind of change in culture happening around us. So I've never had to, like I said, had to worry about support from the management side of things. And even more exciting is we have different areas of the business that maybe didn't have a lot of direct involvement with IT, which is the infrastructure that I report into, that are now coming, to the table to us rather than us in the IT. From the IT perspective, waiting to be ambushed with the next thing that we can't do, that they bring to the table and say, hey, we need this, and we say you can't do it. It's impossible. It costs too much. We don't have the people. Blah blah blah. They're coming to us early in the process in a collaborative, sort of a mode, and we can work together and get a lot more done than we did at the past. And IT now is, is looked at as someone, or an organization that can also deliver innovation rather than just be order takers, right, for the rest of the organization.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So judging by both of your responses, if I can kind of boil them down to 2 key points, it's the idea of collaboration, more extensive collaboration, within the organization between departments, and the whole concept of failing fast, which I think is a big shift for retailers, retail executives, and this fear of almost failing. But in your cases, you guys kind of have the mantra of, try it. If it fails, recognize that and move on.
Just take the learnings and move forward.
And failing fast is not as easy as it sounds. Yeah. I mean, once you've sort of invested, time and effort and money into a thing, it's hard to let go. So it's a hard skill to hone. Yeah.
No, that's great. Tech standpoint, what's required, but what's a standard timeline like from initial ideas, idea creation, brainstorming, to overall execution? And we're going to go to examples later, but if you have an example that you'd like to share, feel free.
In our case, it's probably anywhere from 3 to 6 months, sometimes longer than that. I have a few that took longer than that to sort of come to life. But 3 to 6 months is pretty reasonable from initial idea to being able to actually pilot something in a store in front of customers. And there are a lot of ideas that don't make it through to the end of that, right? So. As you begin with the idea and start to flesh it out, a lot of ideas are going to drop off into the parking lot, right, along the way as you discover, oh, that's not really going to work quite the way we wanted, or we don't, there's some, key piece that's going to cost more than we expected. There are lots of things that can pop up, to get in the way of an idea. We don't ever consider them discarded, but they may need to, be tended to later. Right. It is, our stores are a place, where we do, we can experiment, but we don't really want to, it needs to be pretty well baked by the time we get it in front of a customer, right? We don't want to deliver a poor experience to our customer, for our learning, while we're learning things, right? So, that's one of the reasons why it takes us a little time to get things out in the stores.
Yeah, every project has a different timeline. I think for us, for some of our smaller projects, we like to launch them, 3 months out. We want to just work really fast and really hard on these things, get them out there to our customers so that we can then start learning how our customers are engaging with them, what's actually making sense for them. More recently, we've started trying to dream a lot bigger, and we know that some of those ideas are going to take a lot longer to implement, but we are setting expectations for ourselves to at least get some sort of deliverable on what this will look like in that same 3 to 6 time. We want to just be decisive, and being decisive means that you're going to move a little bit faster. And it also means that we're putting a little bit of pressure on ourselves, but it just encourages us to launch things and get them to our customers as soon as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when I was doing research in preparation for this panel, and obviously our coverage on retail touch points, we've covered both of your initiatives in different platforms, different projects. And what's always intrigued me is just the sheer variety of different projects and, the overall scope that you guys tackle, as organizations. So, I'd love to learn a little bit more about, how you guys kind of inform those ideas or build those ideas out. And Scott, you touched on how sometimes those ideas don't really get that far, but, how do you guys kind of get inspiration or get the wheels turning, I guess you would say, in terms of developing potential ideas to roll out to customers?
Well, so in the slide, I see the touch table project that we did with a partner, T1 Visions. That idea started walking the NRF show floor, the expo hall, in the back corner of the lower hall, and that table was sitting, at a small booth, and I was with our VP of Visual, and we both looked at it and said, "That is gorgeous. That's a, what a beautiful table." And we looked at the technology and and spoke with them for a few minutes and discovered, oh, it's got 4K display and kind of all the tech stuff that interests us. And we knew that senior executives had kept asking us why can't we have a giant iPad in the store, right? Mm-hmm. So that comes together as I think we found our giant iPad here, and 6 months later we were delivering those onto the floor of the stores. It took a while to build the plumbing and to make sure that we were getting the data fed into them correctly, and there were we had to work with our online and e-com team along with T1 to make sure that everything was working seamlessly, right? But that was the life cycle of that project. So they were great to work with.
Our group loves customer problems. It's one of our favorite things to sit around and daydream and discuss. So Ask Zappos, which is on the slide there, it was actually us saying, what if we could solve a customer's problem? We know that they're calling in, asking us to help them find a specific pair of shoes or a dress that they've seen in a magazine. But what if they don't have time to call us, but they still want to find it? What if they could just do it from their phone? And what a question to ask, right? We're all on our phones anyway, so we spent an afternoon just talking. What would that even look like? We hadn't made it official whether we wanted to do the project or not, just exploring in our own brains and with each other's. We all have different backgrounds, so we all are throwing out different pieces. Fortunately, my background actually was in our customer loyalty team, so I knew a lot of how those interactions go, and I was able to give some insight on that. And it just kind of kept pushing the project more and more forward, and we started talking with other teams, our customer service team, and we were like, what do you guys think? What if we could do this? They were thrilled, and we just kept asking, what if?
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And one thing you kind of touched on indirectly there, Candace, is the fact that you knew so much about your customer already, their behaviors, their interactions, and that kind of served as the baseline for that particular project. But do you guys have any other insights, in terms of the role that customer insights and interactions or even data plays, in developing ideas for the innovation lab or fleshing out ideas? Because we've all been hearing so much about, big data and how to better use data to, inform the business. So do you have any, tips or examples of how you guys do that?
So for me, my experience is, I think I bring common sense to the table, right? And try to think of, when I'm looking at ideas and possibilities, trying to think from the customer's perspective. When we get into the the deep analytics and the big data part of it, that's my marketing team, right? That brings that to the table. So they may come to me with ideas, based on data that they've collected or trends that they're seeing. But definitely, when we are bringing an idea to the table, we have to go work with them to figure, how are we going to measure this, right? How are we going to determine if there's an ROI on this, and it's a difficult part of the business to be in that there's really not a lot of hard ROI typically with the things that we're doing, which is the business is not used to that, right? They want facts and figures and immediate, how's this going to pay for itself? And if I'm delivering an amazing touch table experience to my customer, and this is not a selling platform today. This is about helping them collaborate with their sales associate and build outfits and have an amazing shopping experience. There is ROI. It's just harder to measure, right? And I need their help, and I probably do need the big data guys, and Hadoop probably gets involved, and these kinds of platforms, right, to help us wrap our arms around it.
Yeah, that's a really good example, because I feel like the customer experience varies from person to person, obviously. So when you're interacting with those touchscreen tables, I mean, one person may be very intent to purchase and have a strong idea of what they're looking for, while another person is, just wants to explore and like, ooh, shiny thing, and they just want to play with it, and the purchase is probably a little further. It's
harder to measure the ROI of dreaming, as opposed to
right,
buying.
It's more
right?
aspirational.
So,
yeah. How about you, Candace?
It really depends on what the success metric for the project is. And then once we know what we're actually going to use to define our success, then we can talk to the folks that know about our customer data so that we can find the right customers to try and engage them with this product. Our customers, of course, we know who our whole customer is, but we've got all these wonderful subsets that engage with us in different ways and are interested in different aspects of our business. So we want to make sure that we know what it is that we're actually trying to measure before we start digging in for them.
Got it. So we talked about a few examples from you guys earlier in the conversation, but are there any other success stories that have come out of the innovation labs that you want to share, and any best practices that you've sort of gleaned based on those experiences?
Our biggest success to date is Memory Mirror, for sure, in terms of a reaction and I think usage in the stores and press and all the other things that you can wrap around it. The PR team gave me some figures the other day that since January that the mirror and stories about the Memory Mirror in our stores have had more like 650 million impressions since January. So if you look at just the kind of the advertising value of that, which is a multi-million-dollar number, that project pays for that, paid for itself, plus the lab, and plus probably 10 other things that I want to do. in the lab, just on PR. We're not there to do PR. It's kind of icing on the cake, but it's nice when the icing helps pay for the cake, which has happened in this case, right? So we only rolled out 5 mirrors in 3 stores, and you'd think we'd had them worldwide, right, based on what we've done. So that's going to allow me to go out and deploy them in all stores, and that's going to be kind of consuming my summer is working with the company that builds the memory mirrors. They're a small outfit, so they need a lot of help and a lot of attention, to make sure that we can deliver the product that our customer that will amaze and engage our customer.
We recently had what we're calling Magic Checkout. We were at the Beta Breakers Expo. Zappos was one of the sponsors for that. We partnered with Under Armour to build Magic Checkout in their vendor space. And what we did was we put RFID tags on all of the items, and customers could step into a booth. The mat would then read all of these RFID tags, and in a matter of seconds, their purchase could be complete. They would simply swipe their card, and they were done. Our fastest one was actually 16 seconds. We were super proud of ourselves. Really, the success metric for this was, one, just that it would work, because we weren't actually sure that it would. It was not going to go over very well if it didn't work. But second, it was just to have fun and to engage with folks at the expo in a different way. We're so used to standing in line and getting our items scanned. Let's mix it up on you a little bit. Let's see if we can't get you in here, have some fun, and watching people engage with this iPad just standing on a mat was so fun and so wonderful. Older folks were just blown away and super impressed that this was even possible. Kids were like, do it again. How do I get this somewhere else? Where else can I see this? So it was a lot of fun. We're really excited to move forward with Magic Checkout, see other ways that we can use it, and just have fun and make things a little more exciting when you're in line trying to make a purchase.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring up the fact that consumers from all ages, really embraced it, and that the learning curve was somewhat seamless, because I feel like with technology it can kind of go either way.
We also made it as simple as we possibly could. We built this very fast. There was no fancy bells and whistles. It was very straightforward. There was no complications there for the customers, because also we wanted to see if we couldn't do it crazy fast, and 16 seconds is kind of fast.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we talked about the successes, but are there any projects or any concepts that you guys have started to develop within the lab, and you just completely scrapped it, or you tried to move forward with the project and it completely bombed? The goal here, I think, is to basically glean those lessons learned and the good that kind of came out of a bad situation in this case. Scott, any?
Well, we built, I did a project about a year and a half ago called the Fling Wall, which was it was a set of monitors. It was 6 different little square monitors, and you could, with our lookbook iPad, you could, as you were looking at items, you could fling them up onto the Fling Wall. It was a lot of fun. We thought it was amazing, and we built a beautiful fixture, and the screens were amazing, and the flinging part worked great. Nobody used it, right? So, so the failure part of it was that it didn't engage the customer the way we thought it would. But a lot of good came out of it, right? Including the actual fixture as a digital signage fixture was amazing. So it's still hanging there, in the store today, and we're still, we keep the marketing keeps fresh content, coming to it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So I didn't get it was not a complete, no return on the investment.
Right.
It just didn't work out in the way we thought it would work out, and we learned some things. We discovered that just being playful wasn't enough. There had to be some more. I think it had to go further. There had to be a seal the deal. Kind of a thing where they could have built a shopping basket and done something with it, and we didn't do that with this project. So we took those learnings and applied it to projects going forward. Yeah. So all failures aren't really failures; they're just learning experiences, right?
Yeah, in your case, you still had great digital signage, and then you applied those practices for your future strategies, which I think is always the key. Candace, how about you?
One of my favorites we actually called Next OOTD, or Next Outfit of the Day. Anybody that's on social media knows that outfit of the day is crazy, and people love taking pictures of their outfits and sharing them online. So one day we were in a what if session, and it was, what if you could recommend somebody their next outfit of the day based on the outfit of the day that they're sharing today? Can you actually learn something from their social media profile about what they like, what they're into, what their style looks like? And so I did just that. I hopped onto Instagram, I searched outfit of the day, and I found a couple of people that I thought looked interesting, were a lot of fashion bloggers, and I put together a collection for them, a personalized recommendation of items that they might like. It was a lot of fun. We shared it on our Glance platform. They had very specific collections just for themselves. And then they did not want to engage with us at all. Lots of people were sharing next outfit of the day. Lots of people were then saying, this is my tomorrow's outfit, my next outfit of the day. But they were not interested in us making those recommendations in that manner. Other companies were super interested, and the people that we were working with were super excited to see it. But it wasn't something that was going to make sense for us. Instead, we learned that there are people that are interested in personal styling. There are people that want to see that sort of behavior from Zappos, but that method was not the approach that we should be taking.
Got it. So have you, or are you thinking about applying those, that knowledge of, some people like the styling services, and Glance is content curation, outfit curation, which provides inspiration, but is there a more high-touch, styling type experience in the pipeline for you guys, or?
So we tested it a little bit. I'm going to share it in my talk later. It was not as successful as I would have liked that to have been either, but that one was a lot of fun too.
Okay, great. So stay tuned. We will hear more later. So with that, I wanted to start thinking about the future here, because there are so many new technologies. Mobile is really, I think, reaching a tipping point, a really exciting area, I think, for retail overall. Everyone's talking about wearables and beacons. Where are you guys looking, in terms of the future? What technologies do you think will make a profound impact on your organization and your future investments?
Yeah, so mobile's already there and making its impact today, right? So there's just going to be more and more and more of that. Micro-location is, really interesting, I think, to all retailers. We're sort of just, getting started. Did our first pilot over the holiday season, and we'll do another little larger scale pilot over the coming few months, 3 or 4 months. We'll do some additional testing, so I think that's going to be big. To us, the things that are happening in the augmented and virtual reality, space, are really starting to mature now and get past the, it's just, really fun and cool, and to maybe some things we can actually engage our customers with. Maybe I can do some things where I don't have to strap some weird looking headset onto her head to be able to experience, right, which she's not going to do. I think I can enhance both the online digital as well as the in-store experience, with those kinds of technologies, and do some really, engaging things in the store. So, I'm really excited about, the possibilities there. I think, as you said, wearables are starting to come of age. It's anybody's guess as to, where that will head, right? But we're not going to get ambushed by it. We're certainly going to, experiment and play with those technologies as they come along, and look for interesting and unusual ways to apply them.
Yeah. So quick follow-up question before I turn it over to Candace. You talked about how, that there are the trends that are new and cool and super fun, but you're not quite sure, where the potential is, from a long-term business perspective. So how do you guys go about weighing that and, figuring out, should we hop on this because we know it's going to be a big trend, or it's still kind of too trendy? How do you guys figure that out?
I think you just have to place your bets, right? You just have to use your best. There's a lot of things to choose from. There's no way you're going to be able to do it all. It's just there are too many different the technology's changing too fast and too quickly for your business and your customers to be able to absorb every single all these different things that are coming at them. So you place your bets. You see what works. You go back to the the fail fast, right? If it doesn't work, then shift gears and go try the next thing. Right.
Thanks so much, Scott. Candace, what's the future hold for Zappos?
We have decided to kind of narrow our focus to 3 bigger ideas, if you will. We're really excited about pop-up shops. We want to experiment with that a lot more. There's so many different amazing ways that you can play with pop-up shops, so we're really interested in that. We're also curious to know what would a new line of business for Zappos look like. We're known for customer service, we're known for being this online retailer, but what if we wanted to do something else? We even looked at what would it look like if Zappos opened an airline. As crazy as that sounds, we've decided that there's no limit, but what would be next? And then lastly, some folks know that Zappos has changed organizational structure lately and that there's a lot going on. So our team is looking to see if we can help make tools for self-organization, and we can help kind of integrate some of the tools that are currently out there and just make our internal environment a little easier.
Okay, great. So closing out the conversation, we talked a lot about, your internal business processes, timelines, how you guys really go from developing the concept to implementation. But I just wanted to take the moment and have you guys share some final best practices, words of wisdom, both for the retailers that want to instill this innovation, mentality within their businesses, but also those who may be thinking about opening innovation labs within their own companies, because you guys have it within your structure. You probably have some lessons learned, from an operational standpoint. So I'll let you guys kind of determine how to break that down.
There's no right way to do this, and there's not a recipe for this, right? Everybody's organization works a little differently, right? In our case, sort of grassroots, start small, build up, is what made sense for us. I've seen other organizations, that have gone out and built, kind of a staff and a facility, and and kind of made a big bet, right, on their innovation lab. And I'm not going to say one way is better than the other. Once again, it's what works in your culture and your organization. The fact that you're trying, is the big, is the first step, right? I think it will evolve naturally from there. So. We're thrilled, that we started out in a little 10 by 10 conference room 3 years ago. That was our iLab, right? It was teeny tiny. We've doubled the space, I can say now, right? And we're about to do a remodel, and I'll double again, right? It progresses and it grows, and someday I want to get to the point where I could actually simulate a store. Our stores are pretty big, a couple 100,000 square feet, so I'm thinking big here. But I'd love to be able to have an actual test store down the road, right? So
That's really cool,
you have to grow the idea, right?
One of the things that works for us, and like Scott said, there's no model to building a lab or anything like that. So one of the things that's worked for us is looking at customer problems instead of just what the cool hip trend out there that everybody's doing is. If we can figure out a way to add one of those to solving this customer problem, awesome. We would love to try to work with new products and new ideas. But we just want to solve customers' problems first and foremost. And then it's defining what our success for these actual projects are. And that helps keep us on track. And most importantly, it's being decisive. When we come up with an idea and we want to put together a plan, just making a plan and sticking with it through the testing. And then you can always pivot once you have the learnings.
And I would add, right? Yeah. So keeping the perspective of the customer as you make this approach, and in our case anyway, also remembering that our best technology and our most important technology is actually our sales associate, right? It's not technology at all. The sales associate is key for us in our relationship. So the things I do in the iLab, need to be things that help her build relationships with her customers.
Great. Wonderful, guys. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time and being so open with the conversation, because, from a media perspective, it seems like, they're making innovation labs to be this new trendy thing and everyone's doing it, but I think hearing the inner workings of what you guys go through on a day-to-day basis was really enlightening. So thank you guys so much again for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.